From the Denver Broncos Media Center, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight with Ryan Edwards and Benjamin Allbright.
Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight. The Broncos are in the midst of OTAs, and we're seeing the receivers out there working with Russell Wilson, very crisp practices, obviously really cool atmosphere out there on the practice field. But Ben, I was getting into a conversation with our good friend Paul Klee on the sideline, and I wanted to bring this to you here on the show and talk a little bit about the wide receivers and what does it mean if, say, Tim Patrick ends up being the most productive wide receiver this year. If it's Cortland Sutton, if it's Jeudy, KJ Hamler, so on and so forth, what does it mean for the rest of the receivers? Like what happened, as well as what does it mean for the offense? So we start with what I believe is going to be the most productive wide receiver, and that's Cortland Sutton. I think at least early on, it looked like Russell Wilson was looking his way a lot. He looks great, no brace on the knee, that type of thing. So if Cortland Sutton is wide receiver one, most productive wide receiver on this team, treated like wide receiver one, what does it mean for the receiving core? What does it mean for the offense?
Well, first of all, why can't my guy Trey Quinn get any love? I mean, the new sunshine. If Cortland Sutton is in wide receiver one, I think we're terming his most productive wide receiver statistically. I think if Cortland Sutton is that guy, I think that says a lot about his return to form from the injury that has kind of beleaguered him since he had it. What was it, a year and a half ago, season and a half ago, and clearly wasn't 100% last year. I mean, there were times where he doubted his ability to return on it. So if he is, I would say that he's fully back and that he's back from that injury, healed and ready to go. I would suggest that at that point that either there are some misfires with Jeudy and KJ Hamler, because I think these numbers are going to be fairly balanced. I mean, somebody's going to be the most productive, it has to be. But I think these numbers are going to be fairly balanced in terms of spreading it around. And if he's far and away the most productive, that suggests either a Jeudy injury, KJ Hamler injury, or some misfires and miscommunication between Russ and the ability to get the ball there. Tim Patrick is, I think he's more of a complimentary third down guy. And so it wouldn't surprise me if his numbers were less productive than Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, so, I mean, because like last year, for example, Cortland Sutton had 776 receiving yards, and Tim Patrick was a 734. Patrick had more touchdowns than Cortland Sutton, but that's part of this conversation is how do we deem productivity? But I'm talking more yards, targets, those kinds of things. So I think under that perspective, the most easy assumption is Cortland Sutton. But I think it gets interesting as we get into the rest of the guys. Because if Jeudy all of a sudden becomes your most productive wide receiver, well, I think that's going to be incredible things for the rest of the receiving core. Because he's the guy that really has a chance to do something that not many people in the league can do. He could be Davante Adams for this offense. He has that kind of talent, but it's just got to meet the consistency level of Adams.
Yeah, I think if Jeudy is your most productive guy, that says you're winning a lot of games.
That's what I'm saying.
You've been a decimated wide receiver core, because if he's your most productive guy, you got to figure that Cortland and Tim are still going to get theirs in the possession game. And
right.
That I think that what that's saying is you're moving the ball an awful lot. So, in an ideal world, it would also suggest that he's past the issues that he's had, whether those are, on field with the drops and the concentration issues and the injuries and everything else. Or whether that is, off the field and some immaturity at times in interviews and other things, that he's gotten past all that and has come into his own. And I think that would be an ideal situation for the Broncos.
I'm 100% with you, and that would make Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick, I love that you said that, a little bit more of the possession receivers, the more of the 70-30 balls, especially for Cortland Sutton, the 50-50 stuff. Maybe they are better with touchdowns, but Jeudy would be the leading receiver as far as yards and targets. And I think that for the offense, you would be an explosive offense if that's the case.
Yeah, in an ideal world, I think you're using Patrick and Sutton as back shoulder guys. I mean, you run the occasional fly as well, don't get me wrong, but back shoulder guys. You're using those guys as slant guys, goal line fade, your favorite play stuff. I think situations like that, if you can use Jeudy to work different combo routes in the middle where he's having to shake people and use that elite, that elite route running that he has to kind of do those kinds of things and work open the middle of the field. I think that makes them a better team.
So then I guess we get to Tim Patrick, and who's been one of the higher floor guys for the Broncos over the last several years, one of the more consistent guys that you put out there on the field. You have an expectation of what he's going to bring every single week, and he's been reliable. So if he is the most productive wide receiver, you're right. It takes a little bit of then you didn't see what you needed to see from Jeudy. So whatever happened this year, And again, I'm assuming non-injuries for all of these conversations.
It's going to sound like an insult, but if Tim Patrick is your leading productivity wide receiver, something went wrong. And that's not meant to be an insult to Tim Patrick. It's just like his role is a little bit different. He has the ability to put up big numbers in games. We've seen him do it. I just think he's more of a third down, a complimentary guy who, when he gets matched up on that third corner, is going to take advantage of it. Sure-handed, long strider type guy, then he is a complete come in and dominate you, as you like to term it, wide receiver one. And if he's leading in the productivity, that means something wrong happens somewhere else.
Okay, last one, KJ Hamler. If he ends up being kind of the Tyler Lockett role, right? We talk ourselves into these things. I mean, he is the guy that profiles the closest to that. If he ends up being Tyler Lockett for this team, what does that mean?
Well, one of two things. Either things went incredibly wrong or things went incredibly right. There's no hollowed out. There's no middle ground on that one.
I'm 100% with you.
Either KJ just came into his own and he's got the quarterback that can utilize his skill set and give him the ball, and he stayed healthy and was consistent. Or everybody went down with injury and you're force feeding him the football and hoping for the best. And so I don't think there's any middle ground.
Isn't that amazing
really,
though?
With KJ Hamler. There's middle ground with some of the other guys. I don't think there's middle ground if he's your leading receiver. So and don't get me wrong, I'm here for it. I would totally love to see it. I'd love to see an explosive player like KJ. When he and Jerry Jeudy were drafted, we were talking about the orange and blur offense, all that kind of stuff. And I would love to see it. That said, I don't see that middle ground. Something either went incredibly right or something went incredibly wrong.
It's wild, but that's why I think this exercise is kind of fun, because each scenario paints a little bit different picture of the offense. Mm-hmm. And that's where, and you heard Russell Wilson's comments he was talking about these receivers as some of the best in the league. Well, for me, it's a lot of projection, right? And I've said that all along with the wide receivers. Like, I love the talent they have, right? Mm-hmm. But we got to see it all come together. And is it all going to come together all at one time? Well, probably not. But some version of that needs to happen. And so Russell Wilson out here on the practice field with these guys, getting to know them, saying, boy, I'm wowed by the talent of these guys. You expect him to build up his own players, but at the same time, we also know that, hey, they got to do this consistently to earn that. Mm-hmm. Nobody's putting the Broncos wide receiver core in the tops in the league right now, not yet, because they haven't done it consistently.
Yeah, I think having the quarterback there to help will be a big part of that. But I don't like, that's the other thing. I don't care where the national people rank them. At the end of the year, where are they? Preseason rankings from national. Who cares? It's always funny to me watching the guys on Twitter get upset. Well, the disrespect and all. Who cares? I'd rather creep up on people. I'd rather be disrespected and just keep putting it to people than have them rate me number one and go for. Who cares? So. Yeah, hoping that the combination of this quarterback and this receiving core, I think it'd be the most talented that either of them have seen. And I think that synergy, there's a buzzword for you.
Nice.
I think that works out best for both of them.
All right, well, I'll throw you a little bit of a wild card here, right? A little wild pitch.
Trey Quinn, top productive receiver.
Allbright Okwuegbunam.
Well, okay, so here's what I was thinking about this. Like, if you do get decimated in the receiving core, like if I'm the Broncos and I'm Nate Hackett, I think we go to like ace. I think they call it tiger, too tight. Too tight. We got KJ out there on one side taking the top off, the two tight ends working underneath. I could see a scenario where one of these could be a possession tight end if a bunch of receivers went down, something like that, and you could have a possession tight end game with a heavy dose of the run game, which Hackett is used to. I mean, as a play caller in Buffalo and Jacksonville,
right?
His first years, they led the league in rushing attempts in both of those stops. So you could see something like that. You could see a scenario where that works. Even though Russ hasn't really been the guy to force feed a tight end and really hasn't worked the middle of the field over his career, that is a possibility.
But I feel like those assumptions are based on what he did in Seattle and not based on maybe what they're going to be doing here, because of course the Green Bay Packers offense, if he is borrowing some of those things, and they used Robert Tonyan quite a bit out there.
Well, Hackett said in his presser they built this thing around Russ and what Russ wants to do and what Russ has done. So I think you're going to see, a lot of that. I don't think you're going to see as much from Green Bay as people think they're going to see. I think most of what you're going to see is a combination of Buffalo, Jacksonville. The blocking scheme probably comes from Green Bay, and the rest of it comes from Russ up there in Seattle.
All right. Love it. For Benjamin Allbright, I'm Ryan Edwards. Thanks for watching Broncos Country Tonight.